course, with this, we'll typically use some more subtle values. So let me just bring this down, bring this up. So we just have a nice subtle blur or a bloom, and we bring this back a little bit. Let's just create a nice image we can compare here. It's a little bit too perfect looking here, and just adding a bit of GPU effects or here actually create a nice image. Another nice thing we've added is the ability to go into what we call performance mode. And you'll notice, well, on this computer, I'll show you what I'm dealing with here. I have 24 cores at my disposal, and KeyShot will use every single one of those to its fullest. On some laptops that only have maybe 2 cores or 4 cores, you might notice that some of your scenes are a little slow. And if that's the case, you can go into performance mode. You don't use performance mode for your final output, but a lot of times you're not looking for the full quality. You're looking to just move the models around, texture models, and things like that. And what's nice about our performance mode, which you get into by just pressing Alt-P, what's nice about it doesn't go into any sort of GPU mode where you have entirely different material types. It actually just lowers the quality settings of your real-time render down to a point that it'll run fast on basically any machine. You don't have to worry about the difference between a preview mode and a ray tracing mode. It's always ray tracing. It's just a much faster ray tracing because you lose things like shadows and ground shadows. And when you're ready for your full quality here, you just press Alt-P and bring your full shadows. Some of the other things here, like detailed indirect illumination. Detailed indirect illumination allows the light to really scatter across the scene and make it much more realistic. So if we enable that, that's going to actually slow down the render yet some more, but use Alt-P, and it turns all that off automatically. You don't have to go in there and optimize your settings. You just switch between performance mode and not. That's very nice. And of course, we have some other cool things that you'd expect in a sort of a digital photography tool like this. For example, in our camera tab, you have the ability to actually know exactly where your camera is. Let's say we want to make sure we're at -180 degrees, so we're looking perfectly at the side. We can very easily do that. Type in 90, we're now looking at the back, and 0, looking at the other side here, -90, kind of to the front. Then I can just kind of move the camera with my normal key command to get any angle you want. And then I can go in and adjust my perspective. And this is actually a really cool slider. In the past, we have given you the option to use Alt and the scroll wheel, basically change the focal length. And if you're familiar with a physical camera, when you change the focal length of a lens, you're effectively zooming in and out. And that's what this does currently. This is your Alt scroll wheel command, which changes focal length or basically zooms, which is different than actually moving the camera forward, which is Alt left and right mouse drag. But if you want to just adjust the visual perspective or the sort of the distortion of the model, you can use the perspective slider, which will compensate for your focal length and your distance, so that it's adjusting your distance while adjusting focal length, so that you get a model that still basically the same space, but you can change the distortion or kind of the vanishing point effect. So you can see if I lower this, we're getting lots more perspective, but the model still stays reasonably within the scene. And then let's say we want a really dramatic image like this, but this is supposed to be a small model, so let's add some depth of field to give you that sense of scale. Go to our depth of field, enable it, click Pick Focus, and then I can select any point on my model. So let's just focus back here on the cause, and you can see the back of the model is now blurred. When you're finished picking your focus point, you can just click Done. Let's say we really want to exaggerate the depth of field effect. We just scroll it down on the f-stop. And the longer the f-stop, the more depth of field you'll have, or the more blur you'll have. And again, I can change the focal point of the depth of field You can just click here on the back. And there we go. Now the front is in blur. That's a great way of just increasing the realism a little bit more. We'll just turn that off. Some of the cool things we have here in the camera tab that really help you compose a good shot is the grid. The first type of grid we have is just a midpoint. So if you really want to just have a boring centered image, you can make sure your model is right there in the center. And then you're done. If you want to go by the rules of thirds, you can then compose based on that, and you can see these lines here. And they'll help you make sure you're at the thirds points that you're going for. Then we have quarters, and that gives you a lot of points to line up with. You can just pull that. Now, the next thing I want to show you before we end this this demo is how you can actually work with something in a real scene, like a car in a parking garage or in a parking lot. So what I'm going to do is just go to File, New. I'm going to discard my changes there. I'm going to form a new model. Actually, let's hope I have that model. Let me see. Models. Nope. Okay, so what I'm going to do is import BIP, which has the model I want in it. This is actually an interesting thing. A BIP, of course, is the file format that we save from KeyShot so that you have all your environments and materials all saved in that BIP so that you can always come back to it. It's a standard project. But let's say you don't want to open that BIP because it has a lot of things set up, and then you kind of just want to get the data from it and start fresh. So you can import it rather than open it, you can import it like a piece of data. So I go to my BIPs here. I see my Lamborghini BIP. I'm just going to import that. That actually will bring in basically the model, and that's all I was looking for. And the nice thing about it is it doesn't just bring in the model the way importing 3D data does. It actually brings in the model on any materials that you have applied or anyone else has applied in KeyShot before. So you'll see when I double click on the surface here, we already have this nice white metallic paint on here. Okay, let me bring the resolution of the screen up a bit. In order to change the resolution or the size of the real-time render, just drag that like that, and the full screen here, or snap screen full screen. And of course, when you increase the size of your real window, it will slow down the performance. You might be able to pick up on that a little bit here, but don't do that. So let's work this to fit into an actual parking lot. Of course, we can go in and drag and drop some new materials. I'm going to go to my metallic paints. Paints here, and a nice one in orange. And we can go in and adjust some of these settings. And just make this through a deeper orange here, and also turn this down. That's going to give me a nice shiny paint, nice clear coat. And John, thanks for coming there. How to save materials. I will certainly get to that right now. So if you have a material you want to save, like this material, for example, this is of course just a modified material of one of the pre-made materials. And if I want to save it, I just go to my material here, and I can go to any material in the scene. Just double-click, and then click the plus sign here. Clicking the plus sign then brings up this little KeyShot Save Materials window. Let me give it a name. Orange Paint 2. And tell it where to save it. I'm going to save this one into paint. That seems logical. Click OK. Now when I go to my materials, I'm in here in paint, not in that material library. Simple as that. Okay, you can notice here, I've let this has been sitting here for a few moments, and it already looks great. You can see very nice reflections and highlights in this model. Even for this somewhat boring studio, it really does look nice. So that's nice. We have a nice start to our render here. Now let's bring in some lighting in the backplate that's going to make this look a little more real, or as real as the model can look. Even if it's not the best model, but we're all right with that. Okay, so what we're going to do is click Environment, and let's see if there's anything here that's going to work. We could try a factory. You can really see how that factory brings out the clear coat richness of this paint and the metallic effect. It's something that, for me who haven't seen KeyShot, this is one of the first things we did with KeyShot that really captivated the rendering world, was how good our metallic paint is. And I'm just going to go off on a tangent here for a second on that. The metallic paint here, this material, has a great control of that metallic effect. You can see that metallic scattering, and we can control that with the metal roughness and the metal coverage. If I bring up my metal coverage, I'm going to get more metal in my paint. You can really see how that's looking more metallic. If I bring up my metal roughness, it's going to spread that metal over the paint much more. So now it really looks like this dispersed metallic flake effect. If I bring my metal roughness down, you get a much tighter grouping of metal around the highlight. And basically the highlights are going to bring out the metal, and where there isn't a highlight, you're going to see more of the base color. I sort of oppose these colors to like a green here and a blue here. You can see what kind of crazy effects you can get. And again, if I increase the metal roughness, you can really see how that spreads that metal out, decrease it, and it tightens it back up. And metal coverage is the ratio of the metal to the base. So at 1, we're basically seeing almost entirely metal, and at 0, we're seeing only base color. And that's actually a pretty cool Lamborghini paint right there. So I'm going to bring a little metal in there and make this complement that a little bit, make it a little more. There we go. Okay. Now this environment's nice, and let me just see if I have a backplate to work with. Let's see here. We bring in something like this, position it on here. You can see this backplate works pretty well with the lighting. We actually have a lighting environment that will work even better with this. But you can see I'm just using the cameras to position the car in this backplate. Now, one of the nice things we've done for you is we've included in the metadata of the backplates the focal length, which for a lot of these is 28 millimeters. And what that tells me, it also tells you what model camera, which is a Canon 7D, which tells me that taking into account the crop factor of this camera, I need to use about a 50 millimeter focal length. So I'm just going to type that in, 50 millimeters. You can kind of just know that with our backplates, go with a 50 millimeter lens. It actually starts to look pretty nice. All right. And then you can, of course, adjust focal length just a little bit. Maybe you don't need to perfectly match it every time, you know. So that's pretty nice right there. But I actually do have a lighting environment that more perfectly matches this. So I'm going to load up my, get back to my kind of off the screen here. Here we go. Click my environment. And this backplate actually matches with the industrial backplate right here. And we're just going to rotate our environment until that matches. And it's somewhere around here. Now here's the cool thing you can do. You can toggle your backplate off so that you can see the environment. Just press B, and then you see the environment. Now, the gamma is actually something we need to consider here. And this is getting a little advanced, and of course, I'm throwing a lot of information at you. But hopefully you'll give KeyShot a try if you haven't already, and see what you remember of this, so then get in touch with us and look at our tutorials and all of that, and we'll help you along with your learning process of KeyShot. But basically, gamma here, in order to make this lighting environment look a little less intense, I'm going to bring my gamma up. And this gamma is in the Realtime tab. And there's another gamma and another brightness in the Environment tab. And you have to kind of think of this as Realtime is sort of a post-process. It's like you went into Photoshop and adjusted a photograph. That's the Realtime image, Realtime brightness and gamma. In the environment, you're actually adjusting the world. You're changing the gamma of the lighting environment itself at the core of the lighting. So if I bring the gamma of the lighting